I own the company Intuitive Woods at intuitivewoods.com, and you see me here on YouTube a lot. My story was a very rocky one, and I want to know if my story connects with you at all. Do you have a rocky history as well? And would you be willing to share it in the comments section? Would you be willing to talk to me, or to private message me, or inbox me, and would you be willing to share your story with me? Alright. I was not born with a fatal disease, but I got it around the age of 4, and it was really bad. It was called dermatomyositis. Don't worry about that. But these calcium deposits would erupt out of all my joints. They were like like chalk, like white liquid chalk or hard chalk, like hard calcium and liquid calcium. They would just erupt through all these areas all over my body, and they were so nasty, and it was so gross, and it was so painful. The areas around them would be so inflamed and tender, like if you just blew on them. It was like it was painful, and the calcium they would form these beds where they're like the open beds. They were open. The skin was open, and you could see down. You could see the veins and the arteries, and you could see the tissue, and you could see the hard calcium embedded in there. And it was, oh God, it was horrifying to look at and to feel and to be around. Guys, I'm one of the top relationship experts in the world, and I'm known for this, and I have a good following. But guys, even though that's the case, even though I'm considered one of the top relationship experts in the world, even though I'm considered one of the most resilient, emotionally resilient people and the highest teachers on resilience, and even though I have a strong and confident nature, there was a time when I had none of those things, and I mean zero, zilch, nada, never happened. I grew up in a highly abusive home where there was physical abuse, there was verbal abuse from a very educated person who knew how to deliver verbal abuse in a very, kind of way, in a really nasty, cagey, particularly vindictive kind of way. I grew up, there was physical abuse, there was always threat of harm. I was a child not being protected by the people who were supposed to be protecting me. I was being attacked by those people. And so there were days when I would just spend holed away somewhere in the house, in some far corner room, or we had these stairs that went up to the attic, and there was a door to the stairs, and I would get behind the door, and it would be really dark and cool. Nobody knew where I was, and I could just sit there and hide. And I was a very patient woman who had a lot of, I was a very patient little girl who had a lot of imagination, and so I had no problem with just sitting there and hiding in the dark and being alone with my thoughts. That was more safe than being out among my family. And so it was unbelievably difficult. There were times when I would cry myself to sleep in the middle of the morning because of how bad the morning had been. And then when I was put down for my nap, I would cry myself to sleep for my nap. And then I would go out in the middle of the afternoon because the third incident had occurred, and I would cry myself to a state of calm somewhere out in the yard, hidden behind a tree somewhere. And then a fourth abuse would occur in the evening, and I would cry myself to sleep at night. And there were times when I wouldn't even be able to go to sleep at night. I would just lie in bed and wait for the dawn to come. And I would be sent to bed at 8, and I would just wait for 8 in the morning. And I would just lie there for 12 hours, and I would just think, God, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better life. Everybody's life is better than mine. This is so hopeless, I'm constantly abused. I'm constantly accused of things that I haven't done. And I was always so angry about it. I mean, I would be accused of things that the family member who had accused me of it, the parents who had accused me of this, they were in an angry mood, and so they would just make things up, and then they would accuse me of these things. And the injustice of it really just hit hit a really deep nerve in me. It was like it was not only a lie, but I didn't even have the capacity to defend myself because it wasn't against a sibling, it was against a parent who had a notoriously violent temper. That if I tried to stand up for myself, I would only be beat more, and I would only have more accusations, false accusations, more lies spread about me to my face. And I couldn't believe the injustice of it. I mean, there was no fairness. Nobody was actually standing up for me. Nobody could, not against these people. And whenever I did try to stand up for myself, I always got into even more trouble, and it was so much worse. And I hated all the lies. I hated them. And so there were times when I would go out into the yard, and we had a swing set way out on the other side of the yard, and I would sit on the swing, and I was physically very weak. At the age of 4, I had this very violent disease, and so I was in fact, my disease probably protected me more than, I believe that's the reason why I created the disease, was because it protected me more than it protected my brother and my sister. Because my brother and my sister, they didn't have the disease, so they were beat up a lot more, and they were more verbally abused, and I was able to delay the onset of the abuse, of the worst of the abuse, for several years before it hit me. It hit me as well, but even as a young child, there was so much of an onslaught coming to me that even though it got worse later on, as a kid, kids are supposed to be naive, innocent, not have a clue about the world. They're supposed to have some level of innocence in them. And I was thinking along terms more. I was at the age of 4, knowing that my mother was acting younger than I was, knowing that my father was just so disconnected because of how violent the situation was, and everything was just so bad. So what I had to do was I had no recourse. I had no physical recourse. I wasn't strong enough to fight back. I wasn't strong enough to run away. I wasn't physically strong enough. I wasn't emotionally strong enough. That's for sure. Nobody knew about it, because what were we supposed to do? Complain to other people about our parents? It would have just looked like, oh, kids are just complaining about their parents. Whatever, no big deal. But it was abuse. It was so much abuse, and I knew at the time that it was abuse. I knew that it was unfair, that it was unjust. I knew that it was wrong. I never thought that what she said about me was true. I never internalized those beliefs. So what ended up happening was, during my teen years, I had to get a lot of her own nature out of me, because if I wasn't the victim, I ended up kind of turning into the perpetrator a little bit. So during my teen years, I had to really work on that. And there was this situation where I would just go across to the swing set, and I would just sit on the swing, and I would tense up all my muscles. I was so angry. Oh God, I felt cold ice running through me, and I was just so white hot rage, and I would tense up all my muscles, and I would just hold them all as tense as I could for as long as I could, because that was the only thing that would burn my anger. I couldn't go out and punch something or somebody. I wasn't strong enough to do anything about my physical situation. I wasn't strong enough to do anything about my emotional situation, or the verbal abuse, or the lies. There's so many lies spread everywhere all the time. And I didn't have the capacity to deal with that. So I would just go out to the swing set, and I would just tense up all my muscles, and I would just be angry for so long. Now, I would do a lot of crying because I was upset, doing a lot of crying because I was afraid, and doing a lot of crying because I was angry. And I wasn't allowed I wasn't allowed to cry in front of them. So I had to cry, because if I cried in front of them, then they would ask me what was wrong. And if I accused them of anything, especially if I accused her of anything, oh my God, things got so violent so fast. Verbally abusive, physically abusive, emotionally abusive, all at once. It was so bad. So I spent a lot of my time crying in secret, because that was the only alternative I had, and it was a position of great helplessness, and it was a position of great powerlessness. Today, I have such a passion for not only building strength and power within myself, but for helping other people to understand where their power is and where their strength lies, and how their strength may differ from the strength of the people who are around them, who they don't particularly feel comfortable around. That think about it. Think about it. If you are told, excuse me, if you are told of a strength that you have, and that no one else around you, nobody in your family or your friends or your social group or your coworkers, if you have a particular strength that nobody else has, wouldn't that make you feel special? Wouldn't that make you feel strong? Wouldn't that make you feel like, oh my God, I can do this one thing that nobody in my life can do. I need to like become the expert in this thing, you know? Wouldn't that make you feel like, okay, if all else fails, I still have this one aspect of myself that nobody in my life has, and I can be the person who provides that service. I can be the person who provides that strength to the group, to the people around me, and to myself. And so a lot of my videos are about giving understanding and giving support to people so that they understand life, and they understand people, and they understand personal interactions better, so that their lives can be so much easier than mine was. So that if they had a bad past like I had, they're able to be empowered, and they're able to say, oh, I now have tools, I now have understanding, I now have knowledge, I now understand why why things are the way they are, why people act the way they act, how I can interact with them in a way that I don't lose myself, but I also don't attack them, and I'm able to interact with them on with their personality type and their understanding of life, as well as for my own understanding of life, and helping them to hear me. So that's what I want to do. My disease was active until I was 12. Thankfully, I got out of that particular household, and my disease became inactive. It went into remission around the same year. So that was pretty much at the beginning of my teen years, which was huge relief. And it dawned on a huge period of renaissance for me, where I was able to explore everything, and I was able to try out everything, and I was able to grow in my power and grow in my strength and my self-confidence, and just skyrocket it. And I had full power of freedom, and I had full experimentation, and I had full ability to express myself and to be who I was. And my health was just so much easier. I was no longer getting sick with a calcium deposit, which was erupting particularly bad, that month or whatever. And so I was able to just be free. And actually, I was still disabled. Yeah, I still had some flexibility issues. I still needed help in and out of, like, to get up and down off, like, the ledge on vans and stuff like that. I still needed help with that. But everybody was accommodating. I had good friends. I had good mentors and teachers. And there were people that my youth group was so helpful. People in my youth group, that was a renaissance period of my life. And I was able to just grow and grow and grow and grow and just become so much more than I'd ever been before. And the problem with that was that I didn't understand. At the time, if I expressed emotionality, I was around people in my family who were not emotionally developed themselves. And so when I did express my emotionality, it had to be around people who were outside of my family. Around the age of adulthood, I started understanding that my capacity for expressing myself emotionally was underdeveloped, that I was a little bit sociopathic, that my ability to connect with other people was almost nil, and I needed to start working on something that, I'd heretofore been reticent again, been afraid to express my emotions, because every time I expressed my emotions, I was attacked. I was attacked relentlessly on all sides, in every way, for a long period of time, every time I expressed my emotions, as opposed to her expressing her emotions, or some other member of my family who was not in such of a powerless state that they weren't able to express theirs. So, and then there are members of my family that, they were stronger than I was, but they were also not, they grew up in areas in their life where they did not feel powerful expressing their emotions. So they are emotionless and expressionless even to this day, which when I entered adulthood, it was like I've got to be more mature about this. I've got to stop getting dates with guys for the sake of getting dates with guys. I need to start, connecting with guys on a more deeper emotional level. I need to start being around people and forming connections and bonds with them. And my God, I was an adult at that point, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. I had no clue. I would try to connect with someone, and I would mess it up, and then there would be all this tension and energetic, discontinuity between us, and then it was like, or to even lead to bad feelings or a fight. And I'm like, okay, well, I tried, but so that would give me long pauses between the next time I tried again. The first time I tried, the next time I tried. So, I wouldn't try very often to express my emotional feelings or try to connect with people because I was so bad at it at the beginning that it was, my God, it led to all these things, and the fallout was always bad enough to where it kind of discouraged me from trying again for a while. But I knew I needed to do it, so after a period of time passed, I would try again, and I would try again. I am really proud of my persistence. Yes, persistence. I can help people. Anybody who needs help with persistence, that is what I've got. I've got plenty of persistence. It was a situation in which I knew that as an adult I needed to start forming connections with men so that I could someday grow up, get married, have a family, and it be a healthy, normal family, not a dysfunctional, blame-centered, aggressive, attacking family. I needed it to be a healthy, normal, emotionally well-developed family. And so I needed to get good at interacting with guys on a more healthy level, on a healthier level. And I needed to be the kind of person that knew and understood what friendship looked like, what good, positive, resilient friendship looked like. And that took all my just the friendship alone took all my teen years and all my adult years up until today to just get that down in a way that I really feel comfortable with. I've been practicing friendship for 20 years now, and it's like, shit. It's something that did not come naturally for me because I grew up in a highly vindictive family, and it was either highly overly aggressive and extremely vindictive, or it was way too passive and just, keep your head down, keep your shoulders hunched, and just get through the day and try not to anger the beast too much, And those are the two personalities in my family. There was one or the other. It was never both. Well, and if it was both, it doesn't matter. They were both, they were both bad energies to have. They were both highly detrimental. And so, I'm a damn good relationship expert, and I'm a damn good. I'm very, very good at being what I am and helping other people with their personal interactions. And what I teach other people, it's a permanent change in their lives. It doesn't just help them for a little while and then they go back to the way they were. It helps them permanently. It gives them knowledge and information and clarity on what's happening in their situation. And in a lot of ways, my life has become healthy, and normal, and emotionally balanced myself. But even to this day, I still actively, purposely, daily work on myself and work on my relationships because it is something that I have struggled so much with in my earlier life, in my childhood, in my teen years, and even for 10 years in my adulthood, that it's been a situation in which my own world has always been one where I expected conflict, I expected problems. And so if there was a conflict and there was a problem, I would weed it out and I would work on it. And so it took me a while to learn the art and the talent of just allowing peace to reign, allowing love to reign, allowing connections to form naturally and organically, rather than forcing them or weeding them out or doing it in a really aggressive way or addressing problems. But I was raised by someone who did not address their own problems, which is why they were the way they were. They were aggressive because they did not address their own internal issues, and so therefore they were just messed up emotionally. So they were very violent in about every way there is to be violent. But I I was in a situation where I needed emotional closure, and I did the opposite of what they did. Was I addressed all my problems directly, but sometimes when I addressed my problems, it was almost like, okay, here's a problem, we need to work on it. Okay, let's weed it out, pull it out. It was too aggressive. My approach was too aggressive. The way I talked to other people about it was so it was all off balance. It was addressing it rather than avoiding it, so that was good. But it was then it was like obsessing about it, or it was about making it bigger than it was, and it was not acknowledging all the space and the peace that occurred in between the problems, which was a lot bigger than the problems were. The problems were these little points, and I was not acknowledging the space and the peace in between them. And because I really wanted to not be the kind of person that they ended up being, which was a very violent and overly aggressive person. I wanted to be a person who addressed their problems and took responsibility for their lives, and took personal responsibility for who they were as a person, and personal responsibility for their relationships. So that really threw me for a loop. And for over 30 years, I've been in a position where, oh my God, I'm so happy that I'm able to help other people. Oh, it's amazing to me that I can give other people insight on their relationships and their interactions with other people, and I can show them what things that they are not seeing, or that has not been explained to them in a way that clicks with them. And oh man, their whole lives changed permanently after that. I mean, we're talking about forever on out. It's a permanent change, and I'm so happy that I'm able to do that. At the same time, I always have to be very careful of the fact that in my personal life, shit was always just so bad. Whenever I started dating when I was a young teenager, started dating at a very young age, I wasn't sexually active until my early 20s, because for a long time I just wanted to wait till marriage, and then after a while it was like, okay, I think I'm emotionally ready for this now. But when I was a young teenager, I started dating because I didn't want to be one of those women that grew up and was so shy around men that she didn't know what to do, and she was now all grown up, but she had no experience around men. I didn't realize that was the norm rather than the exception to the rule. And so I thought that was an exception to the rule, and I didn't want to be the exception to the rule. I wanted to be knowledgeable about that. So I started dating at the age of 14, and one of the reasons why I started dating at that age is because around the age of 12, when I was younger, and my mom and my brother were helping me with my disease, they kept telling me over and over again, someday you're not going to have this disease, someday you're going to be able to run and jump like the other kids, and you won't be as restricted as you are now. And that was one of the good things about my childhood. That was a really emotionally deep level of good that came out of my childhood, because I was not raised with the belief that I would ever be victim to my disease. I was raised with the belief that I would overcome it and it would be okay. So when I was dealing with how painful it was when I was younger, I kept thinking, I actually set up an arbitrary number, and I thought, I don't want to be an adult when this goes away. I think around the age of 12, I think that's far enough in the future. At the age of 6, the age of 12 was like way in the future. 6 years away, oh my God, that was a long way away, So I set myself at the age of 12 to be completely over the disease. And I woke up on my 12th birthday and I cried. I woke up on my 12th birthday and I cried and cried and cried, because I knew it was my 12th birthday, and I knew that I remembered what I had thought when I was 6. And I knew that it wasn't out of my system yet. Incidentally, that was the year that I went to go live in a more peaceful home, and I went to my disease went into remission, and things were much easier. But that was also the year that I woke up and I was like, okay, this is not out of my system yet. I need to do something about this. So what I did was I sat down and I thought, okay, I don't want to be sexually active yet, because people who are, when you lose your virginity, that's a one-way street. I need to do some research first. And I asked everyone I knew about sex, about, I asked married couples, people who've been married for a long time, people who were divorced. I asked all kinds of people, single people, young people, old people. I asked everybody what they thought about sex because I wanted to understand whether virginity was a one-way street or not. So that was important to me. But I knew that I needed to start dating pretty early on because I knew that I was socially inept. I knew that I was socially not ready to be around other people for dating, and I knew that if I was going to make any mistakes, right then was the time to make them. So at the age of 14, I started dating. It was easier on me because I wasn't dating in order to appear well. I was dating for experimentation purposes. I was dating because I knew that I didn't know anything about guys or dating, and that if I was going to get good at being a girlfriend and and dating other people, right now was the time to make all the mistakes. Right now was the time to fuck up. Right now was the time to get out of my system. So when I was 14, I started dating for that reason. And so when something bad happened, I was able to let go of it more easily then because I did not have any emotional attachments, particularly to the guys. I had a little bit of a self-esteem thing. I would have preferred if some of them didn't, say mean things to me when they broke it off with me. But I was able to not be emotionally attached to it because, after all, it was just an experiment. When I became an adult and I started actually putting myself in the position of other people, I'm playing with this while I'm talking to you, and I started putting myself in the position of actually falling for the guys I was dating. All of a sudden the emotional stakes skyrocketed. Whereas before I didn't care. All of a sudden the emotional stakes really, really went, too high for me to handle. And it was a situation in which I realized, oh God, I thought I'd avoided heartbreak by starting dating at an early age and just getting over the mental toughness and having mental toughness about it. And now I realize, well, none of that was able to happen partly because I wasn't emotionally invested in those guys. And now that I'm an adult and I'm trying to be more responsible about my interactions with guys, oh my God, I care more, I act more irrationally, whereas before, I'd mastered the art of being aloof and just being easygoing and fun to be around. Now it was like, oh my God, I really care so much. So when I entered adulthood, it was a really big shift because, yes, I was extremely experienced in dating and in not just dating but making men fall in love with me. But I was not experienced in actually being emotionally vulnerable myself. So the emotional connection that I had with them, it was just so painful, and it was so much more risky because my heart was on the line rather than it just being my ego on the line. All of a sudden my heart is on the line, and it's like, okay, I can handle losing some of my pride, but because I got used to that when I was, a younger teenager. I did that on purpose. But now, I don't want to risk my heart. I don't want to risk my emotions. I don't want to do that. I don't want to risk my emotional state. So that's when things became just so much more risky emotionally. And that was when I really started dating for love and dating for connection. But by that time, I really had mastered the art of dating successfully and making them fall in love with me. When I was 16 years old, I got my first marriage proposal, and I got my first kiss. Guess which one happened first? The kiss happened about 5.5 months after the marriage proposal. That was how my life was ordered, because I'd set such a goal on learning that one thing. When I was 12, I knew that men needed 3 things. Men needed somebody with a sharp wit against which they could sharpen their own wit, so somebody intelligent. They needed somebody soft and warm who personified the warmth and depth and womanliness that they themselves lacked. And they needed somebody who was also beautiful and aesthetically pleasing to look at. And I did not consider myself to be the third thing, so I wanted to be really good at the first 2 things. When men fell in love with me, though, I realized that they thought that I was aesthetically pleasing no matter how disjointed my body was. So I wasn't. I realized pretty early on that beauty really is in the eye of the beholder, and that I needed to stop worrying so much about how my appearance was, because I really was beautiful, and the more they were in love with me, the more beautiful they thought I was. So, okay, that's done, you know. Great. That's one problem solved. You know, one check mark on my list. All right, I don't have to worry about that. Good. Okay, good. So, because I'm such a good relationship expert now, because I'm good with advice, because I can help people so much, I want to expand my YouTube channel to help people understand personality types and men and women and relationships and connections between people. And I'm developing 4 high-end programs right now. I'm in the middle of developing them right now, so the website's not in its final position. Although you can go to the website, intuitivewoods.com. I'm developing 4 high-end programs to help people go into really in-depth personal interactions into those interactions. Men and women. There's one called the Man Plan. There's going to be a program called Deep Cleaning, which has to do with cleaning out your life emotionally, physically, environmentally, mentally, just, you know, every possible way you can clean out your life. It's going to be that's the most expensive program because it's the most emotionally vulnerable program, and it's the most costly program when it comes to emotional, just how raw you feel after you start doing it. But it makes you I would say about 100,000 times stronger than you are right now. So it's worth the money, but it is more costly because it involves lots of heavy progress and detail between me and my clients, my wonderful, awesome clients. So I'm developing that right now on my website. If you've seen this video a while after it's been published, I may have already got the programs up and running. Just go to intuitivewoods.com. Just intuitivewoods.com. intuitivewoods.com. And guys, I'm Rita Gehman, and this is my passion. This is my passion, is to help other people feel secure in the way that I did not feel secure, and that I had to learn all by myself with help from no one. I had help from some people, but it wasn't ever help that lasted. I had to stair step from one person to the next person to the next person to the next person, get myself up. So it took a lot of internal strength that I know we all have. I know we all have that internal strength. You have it, I have it, we all have it. And I want to make life easier for you by creating a channel in which you're able to see personal interactions, personality types, men and women, relationships, dating, marriage, just any type of parent and child. I want to start doing those videos as well. Any type of personal interaction between people, I want to make them easier for people. I want to make them. I want people to be able to understand what that looks like and how that is, and how a healthy version of that would look like. And guys, I really admire who you are, and I really admire whatever stories you have, because I know that you have amazing stories, and I know that there's a wide variety of stories out there. Guys, I would love to hear your stories, your comments, what you think about. I would love to hear those things in the comments below. Guys, I love you so much. I would love it if you like this video. If you like this video because you want the video, great. If you subscribe because you like who I am as a person, wonderful. You'll get lots of videos from me. And if you are looking for a connection, please connect with me. If you're looking for a connection because you need a personal connection with someone who will probably understand your position, I'm her. I'm raising my hand. I'm her. I will probably understand your position. Guys, I love you so much. Please subscribe below, and thank you so much for watching my video.